Yeah, we got an intro, y'all. I know, because I have been off for a while and I did not have an intro. I'm sorry, y'all. Y'all were just like, yo, she done got lazy. She don't got no intros no more. We got intros now, y'all. I hope everyone is having a great Thursday. Thank you for joining me. My name is Chauncey K. Robinson, aka Twisted CKR, and I'm with my mama, Wakanda Forever, Karen Robinson. You know, she sporting. We sport the Baldies here. Baldy Nation. So today, y'all, last week we finished out Evil. If you've been watching it or you're catching up with it, you can check me and my mama's reviews and recaps and talks of it when it comes to the Evil season, Paramount Plus. And today we are talking about the Sandman. Yes. Hey, Josh, how's it going? Yeah, we back at it again. Fire, 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 fire. Hey, hey Michael.
Hey,
yeah,
Mike.
the sick beats. I tried to get an intro finally. Two of my favorite horror hosts. Aw, thank you. And yes. Okay, so today we're doing part one of our two-part discussion on the Sandman, Netflix's The Sandman. Yes. So we're basically for those who originally, hey Tom, how's it going? Welcome, Twisted Fam.
Who's that?
Prometheus. Promethean. Hey there. Hey, how's it going? So yeah, we're gonna do the Sandman. So originally, okay, so this is what I was thinking. Originally, we were gonna do the Sandman like episodes 1 through 4. And then 5 through 7, and But then I remembered how people usually watch Netflix shows, and usually people tend to finish the whole season. And I didn't want anyone to feel like, you know, they couldn't talk about like episode 5 and 6 if we're just talking about episode 1 through 4, because we've literally seen, some of us have literally seen most of it, if anything. So what I want to do is make this more of a two-part discussion where we talk about like the overall season, some highlights and things like that, like what we like, the Fave characters, things like that. I got a few points we're going to be talking on. Of course, I want y'all to give your opinions as well, of course, give your judgments. And then we're going to do that for like an hour or so. And then next week will be part 2 of that discussion to kind of, wrap it up, things like that, whatever we didn't touch upon and everything. So it's like a 2-part discussion on an overall 11 episode season, which I think is pretty solid because, like I said, I remembered how people tend to watch episodes of Netflix, and most people are not going to be like, oh, I just stopped at 1 through 4. I mean, especially if you know what happens in 5, 6, and 7 and all that. But we won't get, in terms of this first part of the discussion, we probably won't get too deep into detail about what happens towards the end of the season, because we are going to talk about some of the plot points in order in that regard. But in terms of like overall your favorite characters and things like that, feel free to say whoever that is, even if they didn't show up in the first half of the season and stuff. Hey, Betty, how's it going? Happy Thursday. I apologize, y'all. I'm sweating a little bit. It is hot here in SoCal. And our AC in our house is like towards the front. And so I just got like the box fan back here with me.
Yeah, that box.
I know. I'm like, that's another reason why we're going for like an hour or so. I don't know how long I sit back here where my equipment is. Yeah, so first and foremost, I also want to talk about the comparisons with the comic books. Let us know in the chat, y'all, and also in the replay discussion if you have read the comic books before. I know they are rejuvenating the comic books. Now, the comic
book. They're not. It's not in a book form. It's in only
comic books. Yes, like graphic novels. I thought I told you that. Remember when you said you wanted to get the book, and I'm like, they're in comic book form.
Oh my goodness! So where I get that from?
Comics. Yeah, comic store. You could probably order them online. Now I heard they're kind of expensive because now that most of the show the comics came out, and what we're going to talk about that. We want to talk about the comparison between the comic books and the show, maybe some of the controversy surrounding that for reasons, and maybe some of the changes and everything. Because I always think it's fascinating, even if I haven't read a comic for a show or an adaptation, to see what the adaptation has either added to it, taken away from it, what we were denied, what we could look forward to possibly, and maybe how they interpret it. So we're going to have a little bit of that as well, but
curious.
Very curious. Yeah, Josh, agreed. It's nice to see Black woman representation. I love that. There were so many times when I was just like, we'll talk about it, of course, but I mean, just to, since you brought it up, Josh, which is a great point. A lot of time in fantasy, and even in horror, because your girl's a horror fan, and I like dark fantasy and stuff too. And unfortunately, I just feel like when it comes to particularly Black women, and people of color, if we're being honest, right, in general, we don't get to be there all the time. You know what I mean? Or it's like a small part, like Game of Thrones was all the rage, and we were like maybe 1% of that. And, there's always this, and we're probably going to see an increase of representation of people of color in the new Lord of the Rings series that's coming on Amazon. And, it's just nice to see us in fantasy and not in something that always has to be about, trauma and racism and, like Josh is saying, token Black woman, Black man, usually the one person who's there and allowed to be in fantasy shows. As Prometheus pointed out, I was so happy to see so many Black women in this, especially dark-skinned Black women. You do not get to see that. That is very true. I have been waiting for them to add a Black woman, and particularly a dark-skinned Black woman, to Stranger Things. It's crazy that the one person we got was like the youngest sister, and she didn't come into fruition until like the final season and stuff. And I'm like, you got the 80s here. Whitney Houston was such a huge influence, and y'all ain't even gonna allow a Black woman to be sporting some 80s clothes as a main character. It's just I'm a little annoyed at that. So yeah, I really appreciated how I was very surprised in some instances where it was like a Black woman. I was like, this is like, it was just so refreshing to me that it was showed there. And we'll talk about some of the pushback that got too, right? Because there was some pushback to that. Yes, and I think this is something Neil Gaiman takes seriously, given how American Gods started. Exactly. For those who don't know, Neil Gaiman, who is the writer and creator of the Sandman, also wrote American Gods. And in American Gods, the different kind of gods, they very much highlighted the whole idea of the Black struggle and things like that, and some of the writers between that as well. So, yeah, Black woman in True Blood. I forgot, what was her name? She was like a main character in True Blood. Did you used to watch Tara? Yeah, yes.
She was the witch.
She was the one that was the witch? Okay.
Yeah.
I know in the Vampire Diaries, I had to stop watching because of the treatment of Bonnie on that show, the one Black girl that they kept having her sacrifice herself for everybody. I was like, all right, whatever, Julie Plec. I don't watch your stuff because of that. I don't trust her with Black women characters. But I digress. Yes, Josh saying Lucas' sister Erica on Stranger Things is one of my favorites. She is, but I feel like she's not there as much, right? Lafayette too, God rest the dead to the actor that played Lafayette on True Blood.
What happened to Lafayette?
He passed away a few years back.
Sorry to hear that.
Yeah. Yes, Promethean, I feel you on that. I mean, hate's a strong word because I don't know her personally, but in terms of her work, I can genuinely say I do not like it. She has a tendency to, I don't like when someone adds Black women to a show to have them be kind of like the sacrificial lamb or just the magical Negro for all the white characters to kind of fix things for them. And that's exactly what Julie Plec tends to do with her Black women characters. So I just got to a point where told myself, I'd rather you just not have us included on your show so I don't have to watch it. Like just don't have us on your show. And she did that with Legacies. I don't think there was any Black woman on Legacies. And I was like, thank you. Leave us alone. Like don't write about us. It's good. All right. So let's get into it. Okay, so Sandman, I'm gonna bring up one of the comic book covers of the Sandman. This is one of the covers, y'all. Yeah, that's one of the covers, lady. For those who haven't seen it, it's a very beautifully the Sandman came out through Vertigo, which is connected to DC. As y'all saw on Netflix, that it's a Warner Brothers Entertainment show, which makes sense because Warner Brothers owns DC. So Vertigo was where it came out at, which was kind of like the more indie, gritty comic book brand of DC, kind of like not the Batmans and the Supermans and all that, but more like indie kind of characters like the Sandman. So what we get here is it was a book series, a television series that it's based off of the 1989 to 1996 comic book series, right? So this comic book series started at the end of 1989 and went into 1996. So a little less than 10 years, about 8 years, right? That's about 8 years. Yes. No, it's I know math. That's 7 years. It's about 7. It ran for 7 years. And so, yeah, it's produced by DC Entertainment and whatnot. So, we got our first season. Hopefully I think we should get a second season. I hope we do get a second season. I know Neil Gaiman tweeted that the second season isn't necessarily guaranteed through Netflix because we know Netflix has been going through a little bit of a shakeup when it comes to their stuff. A lot of streaming services have, because the house of cards has kind of fallen on how much direct money streaming can actually make. And so we're seeing a lot of rejiggering going around on Warner Brothers, on HBO Max, on Netflix, on all types of things. And Netflix is definitely also feeling the brunt of that. So we had the Sandman, and so this is based off of the comic book of his. And basically, it's now I just want to read a little bit of the history of it. So it says the Sandman grew out of a proposal by Neil Gaiman to revive DC's 1974 through 1976 series, The Sandman. And so it came from that. And I did see an original cover for Sandman before, but this is very much a little bit of a darker approach, right? So and there's been spinoffs and things like that. I know Lucifer, the character, ended up getting their own comic book spinoff and everything. So we're going to talk about some of that. Okay, so in terms of the Sandman, in terms of the show, and as we go through this, I'll talk about some of the differences in some of the stuff that they did. But in terms of the show, and let us know in the chat, y'all, what are your overall thoughts of this show? Not going into specific plot details, but your overall thoughts of the show, of the season 1 itself.
I liked it because I like how they go through different realms or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
with different, they're all sisters in a way, sisters and brothers in a way with the realms. Isn't that it?
Yeah, with the realms.
Realms, okay. And I like that. And I like how it started off, because he was looking for his sister, and they caught him instead.
Yeah, they were looking for death. As many people in the past have tried to. That's kind of an old plot trope, really. I always see there's always some show. I remember there was actually an episode of Gargoyles where a guy was trying to catch the Egyptian god of death. And it was a whole thing when he ended up. Well, I'm going off on a tangent in my nerd brain, but it is kind of a recurring theme where characters can't accept death. So they always usually want to try to cheat it and whatnot like that. Yeah. And in this case, they caught Morpheus. Yes. Yeah.
So, but overall it was good. I liked how they kept going faster with it. I mean, it kept you glued to it. Mm-hmm. It didn't even though you might want to say, well, okay, I can stop and see them, but then you go, nah, let me see what's going to happen in the next episode. So It kept me glued. It was
Okay.
good.
A lot of people in the chat are saying similar things. Pretty damn good. Towards the end, it slowed down, but overall, let's talk about that because we'll talk about that in a second. Because what I've seen in terms of some people talking about it is that it's kind of a mixed bag. Either people love the first half and was okay with the second half of the show. Some people love the second half of the show a bit more than the first half of the show. Some people loved both, but felt like it was a tonal shift that didn't necessarily gel as well. Things like that. So let us know your thoughts on that as well. Promethean saying, only thing I wasn't sure about was the brief portrayal of despair, but I love how they handled the story thus far, and I will cry if Netflix gives the boot to get you're right. Although Neil Gaiman is letting us know, he did say that even if they don't want to pick it up, he has other potential streaming services who are very much interested in it. So I don't think it'll be like the Dark Crystal that they didn't bring back after that first season. All of that for the Dark Crystal, and they didn't bring it back because it costs too much. But you can spend $1 million an episode on Stranger Things. Okay. I digress. So Betty is saying they really set up their world very well in an understandable way. Exactly.
Yeah.
My thought on this show was I was very surprised when I first saw that the show was coming out. I wasn't super invested because, like I said, I hadn't read the comic book or anything like that, but I definitely felt like, okay, this could be pretty interesting. And I like the idea of mythology and things like that. I wasn't sure because, like I said, I hadn't read the comics, so I didn't even know what this was about. I'm like, Dream, what? And yes, I agree, Promethean. Dark Crystal was so disappointing. I love Jim Henson. It deserved a second season. But it what I really love about the show, as Betty pointed out, is it was very understandable. I was kind of worried that it was going to be kind of like, and I don't want to ruffle any Game of Thrones fans in this saying this, but I think sometimes when you have shows about powerful beings or powerful people, it can get into the whole so-and-so wants to take over here and there's political espionage and so-and-so and are plotting with each other for this. And that is just kind of boring to me a little bit because you're just basically watching a whole bunch of people discuss what they're going to do. And it's just like, okay, you guys are powerful beings. Let's get into something. And I really love that the show did not devolve into that. Yes, there's power plays going on. We saw that. We see it with Lucifer. We see that with Desire. There are definitely power plays going on that will probably escalate as the show goes on. But what they did, they leaned more into the fantasy fairy tale aspect of it, creating this universe of this is what happens with this. And so it was a dark fairy tale going on, a dark fairy tale universe. And I think we're kind of overdue for that when it comes for shows. I think the closest I can think of that was something that was a little bit more of a mature fairy tale realm what was that show that came on ABC, Ma? Once Upon a Time. I didn't watch it because it seemed a little too cheesy for my taste, but it was, so many people loved it. It stayed on for some seasons, and it was kind of, very much, a show that played on the dark fantasies and dark fairy tales. And so
fairy tales so different. They was telling
exactly, kind of like a retelling. Betty's saying, I was surprised I liked it as much. Exactly. I don't usually binge shows, which is why I originally said we were going to talk about episodes 1 through 4 and so on and so on, because I was like, I'm not getting through this whole show in 1 to 2 sittings. And I totally did because I really, really loved it. Promethean saying, compared to his past work, Neil Gaiman's Good Omens. Yeah, Good Omens comes on Amazon Prime, I believe. I really loved how this show was done. I think the world building was better and they had more actors to love. Exactly. Because I believe Good Omens is kind of like focused on 2 characters, right? An evil one and a good one, like a demon and an angel. And so I really just overall came to really enjoy this season because I love that it touched on stuff, but there's clearly so much more to touch on. And I love that it sets it up to be like, we don't need to explain everything. You just need to know about a few things. And there's so much more you can dive into when it comes to this universe that was built. And, you know, I wasn't sure I was going to care for Morpheus. I wasn't sure. I was like, oh, here's the emo, I only have one tone of my voice kind of guy. But I will say, and we'll talk about it a little bit more, I came to like him more as the season progressed. I thought in the first few episodes, I felt it was a little bit one-dimensional. He didn't really start to grow on me until I saw the way he interacted with his sister Death. That's when he started to come to life. And I was like, oh, this is him. Okay, like him feeding the birds, sulking and stuff. I was like, okay, this is cute. Okay, he's more than just an brooding character. I'm not really a fan of the brooding main lead guy. I think it gets repetitive. So I wasn't sure I was going to care for that. But even if I didn't, I also love that the show, even though it centers on his character and what goes on and things connected to him, he's not the only one that gets a lot of play, as we saw. And I love that because although it was focused on him, I feel like this is very much an ensemble kind of show. And it does give you a lot of characters to like and care for and want to see more of. So overall, my grade I would give this season is definitely a B+. I wouldn't give it an A. I think there's some things that could have been done a little bit better, but I would definitely give it a B+. What grade would you give this season 1, Ma?
I agree with you, the B+.
B+.
I like when it first started off and they caught him. I was hoping that in some way he was going to get out, but they just kept it there, and then you just saw what he was bringing to the other people. Off there. And I was like, okay, I watch it. But then I think I liked it when he did get out. When he saw that some of the writing on the floor was like missing some, and that's what he got out. And he made the guard go to sleep.
Mm-hmm. We got a hint of his power. It was interesting. I feel like, and the reason why I don't give it an A, because I did think some things were a little bit lopsided and certain things that I felt got a lot more emphasis. I was like, do I need all this emphasis for this thing? I would rather you emphasize this other thing. I want to know more about this, not so much about this, but maybe that's just my own thing. And I will admit, I did think the first episode was a bit slow for me. I liked it because I saw what they were doing. And I saw the potential, and I'm all about sticking with the show when I see its potential. So when it started to deliver episode 2 and onward, I was like, yes, good. But the first episode, I'll admit, was a little slow for me, where I was like, what are we doing here? Is this whole season going to be about him trying to get out of this? Because I'm going to need more than that. I'm going to need more than that to keep going. Prometheus saying, I liked how they established Dream as a character. He could really had a grudge and could be so petty. Exactly. That was another thing about Morpheus, where I appreciated that he's a flawed being. And although I'm not, the biggest thing on like the brooding guy character or whatever, brooding character in general, I appreciated that he didn't always make the best decisions, and that he did seem petty. I mean, he literally has someone he was in love with serving 10,000 years or so in hell because she defied him. And it's like, really? Like, what's good? Like, you holding a grudge for 10,000 so years? You letting the woman you supposedly love just hang out in hell for that? What's up with you, man? Where's the forgiveness? I
was shocked when he turned into the black man.
Well, I think that's what the thing is. Now, in the comic books, this is one of the examples of them taking, that is actually from the comics. Originally in the comic books, they weren't just a tribe, though. It was like literally the first people. And originally, Morpheus went against the order because he wasn't supposed to fall in love with, it was forbidden for him to take up a love with a human or whatever, but he defied that. And basically he risked it all basically to be with her. Now in the comics, it was the fact that I think in retaliation, the others, I don't think it was necessarily the Endless, like his siblings, but I think someone else in power basically cursed or something to people and made it so that it kind of came to ruin. And so the woman, basically killed herself because she was so in despair about what happened to her people. And in the comics, Morpheus is really mad about that because she defied him and killed herself. Even though, mind you, him doing this, her people, she was in despair. And so he didn't forgive her. And so he chose for her to go to hell. So that's from the comics. Huh?
You couldn't send her to heaven?
He was mad at her. He was mad that she committed suicide. He was mad that she killed herself. That was his idea of her defying him. Now, I don't know if they're going to do it that way in the show, if they ever come back around to that. But that's how it happened in the comic books.
Well, she was down there, so I'm sure he put it out.
But I don't know if they're going to make it so that's the backstory of how she... Oh, here's Tom with the Zodiac. Morpheus is probably an Aquarius. Like holding grudges. Oh my gosh. Right? Prometheus, like, okay, like he had that poor lady in hell for 10,000 years. Exactly. And in the comic books, it was explained that that was the reason. He was mad at her for, I guess, taking herself from him by killing herself or whatever. So I don't know if they're going to do it the same way in the series, but that's the reason why she's down there. So you know he can be petty. He can be petty. Exactly, Sabetti. Whatever he did couldn't, but exactly. He thought her taking herself from him by killing herself was like the ultimate thing. So he basically made it so she went to hell. Wow. Yeah. Not only she killed herself, but she did not want to go to the dream well with him after she died. Okay, so that was also because my understanding in the comics was that she didn't want to. She just killed herself, and he was mad at that. So it was that she killed herself, but she didn't want to go to the dream well either. That's interesting.
I would have went to the dream world, shit, instead of hell,
right? But maybe she thought that was like, maybe she just felt like their love should stay forbidden or something. But we did get a glimpse of one of Morpheus's great loves, maybe his greatest love. Who knows if we might return to that at some point. Although I'm sure with someone who has lived for eons, he's probably has a number of loves, which we've seen. He's had a number of people he's messed around with, but it seems like this one really got under his skin from the very beginning. So yes, Promethean, justice for Nada. Justice for Nada. Like, I like Morpheus, but I had to remind myself, he got this woman in hell for 10,000 years. You know what I mean? And he made some other decisions. Exactly. Yes, so Betty saying dream is to control. And that's what we're seeing. That was the other thing I appreciated about this show, because he's not a character that's perfect. He's not a character that's fully realized yet. He's still learning, which is interesting because he's as old as he is, but he's still changing and learning. And we saw that this season. And we saw glimpses of why he's the way he is, but even though, and there's probably more to it, but I really appreciated getting that glimpse and also knowing there's more room for him to grow. So I actually like that. I don't need my characters, I don't need the main character to be perfect. I just need them not to be annoying. And so I love the fact that Morpheus, although he makes bad decisions, he is not perfect. He's petty. He's probably an Aquarius, as Tom is saying. I
loved his sister Death when she got on him and told him.
Yeah, and we'll talk about Death in a second. I agree. But I love the fact that they made that bearable and they made it make sense for the story of the show, right? It wasn't just like, oh my gosh, again, how could he make this stupid decision, right? So yeah, I would give it a B+. A lot of you that I highlighted, y'all seem to be also agreeing that this is pretty much a B+. Which is pretty high up there. I mean, we've seen some shows come out that's like, what is that, right? Josh is asking if I haven't watched She-Hulk yet, but me and my mom are thinking about maybe catching it and perhaps doing some talks on it, but I haven't caught it yet. I'll admit I wasn't really into She-Hulk's comics because I did read them. I'm more into Hulk comics, as you can see. Hulk is my guy. I know he's in it, but I'm not necessarily sure I'll watch her version. So we'll see. But I'm willing to give it a chance. I didn't care for the comics, and I tried to read different eras of the She-Hulk comic books, and I could never get into any of the iterations of her. So we'll see. Okay, so now with the adaptation, let's talk a little bit about our favorite characters. Who are your favorite characters? Let's say your top 3 fave characters of this season, Ma. And y'all let us know who are y'all top 3 characters of this season.
Well, I like the Morpheus.
Is Morpheus your top 1?
Yeah, Morpheus is my top 1. Death.
Okay.
And I love Desire. Desire was funny.
Desire?
Yeah.
I want more of Desire.
I said, yeah, I need to know about Desire. Desire was funny.
Yeah, Desire was definitely funny.
Those was my 3.
Okay. Just trying to get a picture up here.
Morpheus, Death, and Desire.
Yeah. For me, sorry, I'm just gonna show something on screen. Tom is saying, "Child, I don't know what they were trying to do with She-Hulk, but it's hard past me." Tom is like, I wasn't feeling She-Hulk. Okay, Josh is saying Death, Sandman, and Desire. Okay, so that's top 3 for you. For me, I'm gonna go with Death for sure. Death was definitely my fave because I just think there's so much potential with that character and different things, and I love the dynamic between her and Morpheus. I was just like, wow, that's really good chemistry they have. I'm gonna admit that I don't know if I necessarily saw sibling chemistry, but I definitely saw chemistry between them where I was kind of at some points on they related, right? Because in some instances I was like, are they flirting? What is this, Game of Thrones? But I definitely love their dynamic. So that's for me for sure. Corinthian, that may be something that's a little bit controversial, but I really liked Corinthian.
You liked Corinthian?
The Corinthian, oh my gosh, I hope he comes back. I know in the comic books he does come back in some type of way, but I hope he comes back because he was a highlight for me this season. I really thought he was a lot of fun. And Lucian, I'm gonna go with Lucian, the bookkeeper. I really liked her.
Yeah.
I want to know her backstory. Now, it's interesting because now Morpheus is a close 4th though, right? I would argue that for me, Lucian and Morpheus are tied in terms of the 3rd favorite character. I did actually come to like Morpheus, and I do want to know more about him, but they're tied for me, if I can be honest, at 3rd. My top 1 is Death, and then Corinthian, and then Morpheus and Lucian are tied for 3rd for me when it comes to them. So why were they your faves, Ma?
Well, Morpheus, I just like him because he's a Sandman. The way
you think he's cute?
Yes, I think he's cute. And Death. Now I like Death because it's the way she told, well, come with me, I have to do what I have to do, and what she was doing. And when she told the guy, when he said, well, I'll see you again, she said, yes, you will. And I'm like, because I didn't catch on that she was deaf until she went to the lady house. And then you saw the flapping of wings, but you never saw them, you heard the flapping of wings though,
Yeah.
I like that. I like how they did that. And my 3rd one was who? I said Morpheus, Death. Which one was my 3rd one? Desire.
Oh yeah. I feel like Desire is going to become my fave character for season 2. They weren't around enough for me to, the moment they were around, I loved them, but they weren't around enough for me to say I like them better than Death and Corinthian. Because I just got more time spent with Death and Corinthian.
Oh God, I just say this man just killed people.
But no, he had charm. Like Corinthian has charm. Maybe it's the actor because he's actually a really good actor and he's handsome or whatever. But he has charm.
Everything that saw him, they just wanted him. I said,
right? he had swagger. I was like, this guy is a psychopath, but he's got swagger.
Maybe because he said, yeah, okay. I thought, did you lose your eyes? Oh, hell no.
And you see his eyes. I'm showing the picture for those who are watching of his eyes. And that is the thing of nightmares, right? Someone having teeth for eyes. That's just, I love that fantastical thing about it too. The whole idea of what nightmares look like for people and stuff. So there's that. So Betty is saying Death, Morpheus, and Rose for Sabetty. Josh is saying Death, Sandman, and Desire. Promethean saying blanking on character names a bit. The Corinthian, Dream, and Death. Okay. Death stole the show for me. Definitely her episode was probably one of the strongest episodes of the season. Right. If I'm being honest, I know I cried at some of those moments when she was talking about the whole question of what it means to exist and why they exist and stuff. I definitely thought, wow, this is really good. I forgot the name of the nightmare who was a nice person. Guilt, I think. Galt. I know you're not. I like Gilbert too. Gilbert, there's some runner-ups, definitely. There was Gilbert, and then there was Galt. I think it was Galt, who was the one that was in Jed's dreams protecting him.
The nightmare. She was sounding like a night. She was
a nightmare, and then he brought her back as a dream because that's what she really wanted to be.
Yeah, but
I thought that was powerful too.
Yeah, she was protecting the boy. Let him have good dreams.
Yeah, because she saw that he was being abused and stuff, which we'll talk about probably in part 2 of the discussion. The whole situation with the vortex and all of that. The reason, like I said, yes, Galt. It was Galt. The reason. My thing with my thing with Death, I felt like, was the fact that I really just felt like this character, they're not a goody two shoes, and I think that's really important, right? You don't want Death to be this really perky person because that's just not truthful, right? I don't think any being can do what they do and just be like everything's great all the time. So I felt like the actress did a wonderful job kind of having this balance of, I do what I do and I just try to make the best of it and I try to find purpose in what I'm doing. And I felt like that really worked. And the actress is just gorgeous. I mean, when she walked up to him, I was like, wow. You know what I mean? I'm like, she's pretty.
The guy looked at like,
right? Like he like a lot of dudes were like, who's that? And it's like, it's Death. And I'm like, perfect. I thought the other thing about, yes, no shame in that. Josh is saying that I definitely had a single man tear running down my cheek. Don't tell anybody. We won't. Your secret's safe on YouTube, Josh. I love you guys. So, and I know there was controversy with Death, right? With the Death character. And well, I guess this is a great time to talk about a little bit of the controversies of some of the changes that happened. Now, Death, originally in the comic book, is portrayed as a very pale-skinned woman. Now, from what my understanding is of her comic book counterpart, is that the comic book counterpart actually changes into whoever they want to see, or something like what they want people to see. They can be a shapeshifter if they want to be. But in this particular one, they cast her as a Black woman. Now, when this was first announced, there was kind of controversy because people were like, oh my gosh, you're trying to make it woke. And I'm like, do you even, knowing what I did know about the Neil Gaiman series, I'm like, this is not the show to be acting like they're inserting wokeness, because this show literally has people who identify as they, them, all different types of love being showed and everything. And this was from the 1980s to the early 90s. This show was ahead of its time. So it fits very well that in a new adaptation, they would add more people of color to also add to the progressiveness and the representation that this show, that this storytelling, this universe already embodied, to be honest. Right. And it was the same thing with the Rose character. The Rose character was originally a white blonde woman, and they changed her to a Black woman in the show, which I also thought worked, especially with Unity and stuff like that. I love that. There was a lot of things going on where it was like, this works, you know, but that was controversial in terms of the changes. And I didn't think it took away from anything. You know, it very much wasn't really made a big point, you know, because I mean, at the end of the day, it's a fantasy show and she's deaf. Like whether she's a Black woman, a white woman, she has this power. Like, what are y'all worried about, you know? But there was controversy surrounding some of the casting, and there were also gender swaps too, right? So we had some gender swaps going on for people that we'll, you know, touch upon. And let us know in the chat, y'all, what your thoughts on the controversy that tends to surround that kind of stuff. And if you thought that either added something to the show. I know we just talked about it earlier. A lot of us, I think, felt that it was appreciated, one, that you had Black women in the show, but that you had darker skinned Black women in the show, in a fantasy show and everything like that. And so another change that happened was that there were some gender swaps, one of them being Constantine or Constantine, depending on how you pronounce it. I usually say Constantine, I ain't gonna lie. Promethean brought it up just as I was bringing up the picture, and they changed Constantine into a woman. I am glad they updated the characters. Agreed. Now, this goes hand in hand, right? So Constantine was made into a woman for this. As some people who pay attention to DC Comics and Vertigo Comics, you will know that Constantine is usually a man with blonde hair and whatnot. And in this iteration, they decided to cast a woman and make Constantine a woman for this. I thought it was fine. Constantine wasn't my fave character, but I'll also admit Constantine as a character in general is usually not my fave character. I think they're fine. I've watched a few animated movies of Constantine because I like the whole exorcism type stuff and the horror, but it's not. I mean, I always felt like Constantine was the epitome of the brooding character who always has a chip on their shoulder and can't seem to love anybody for too long. And I get tired of that. So I'm just not the biggest fan. And they definitely, even though it was a gender swap, they definitely kept true to that character trait, as we saw with how they felt about leaving their ex-girlfriend Rachel and all this other stuff. They still kept her as, you know, bisexual and stuff like that, which the male Constantine is as well. It is canon that the male Constantine is actually bisexual as well. So they kept it here with her, which was also great. So that didn't go out the window because, you know, all representation matters. Now, yes. Hey, Michelle. Michelle is saying Constantine confused me for a while because I watched the show, movie, and yes, Legends of Tomorrow. And now Legends of Tomorrow had a Constantine character that stayed consistent. And I felt like people would probably, and I think that, and this is why I think this was a good thing for them to change out this character, because I think people would have got confused. But this actually leads into another reason for some of these changes. As I was pointing out, Vertigo is connected to DC Comics, but the problem is, as it goes when it comes to licensing and who can use what characters, the Sandman wasn't allowed to use certain characters. So certain origin stories, because this is the thing, even though the Sandman was under Vertigo, it was still within the DC comic universe. So a lot of these characters actually, like Martian Hunter, or Martian Man, I forget the name, is actually is in the Sandman comics, but they didn't use him in the Sandman comics because Martian Hunter or whatever is under, you know, the actual DC banner, so they couldn't use them. Same thing with Constantine. They used the character, but they wanted to kind of separate from that. Another thing was with what was his name? The one with the ruby. What was his name? I forgot his name. My bad, y'all. Let me look it up.
The guy?
Yeah, the older guy with the ruby.
Was it John?
Was it John? It was John. Yes, you are correct, lady. John is actually a villain from the DC comic universe, but because what he ends up being is, I think, it's something chaos or something. That's his actual like connection or whatever like that. But because of, once again, licensing and stuff, they weren't able to use that, so they kind of took away that. They took away that connection. Another connection they had is Lita. Now, Lita, as we know, is Rose's friend in this series, right? What you might not know is that originally Lita is the daughter of, can you guess, lady, who she's the daughter of?
Morpheus?
No. I'm saying she's the daughter of a DC character, a DC legend, not a DC like big time character. Can y'all guess in the chat? And don't look it up if you don't know.
Wait. Is a hero?
Yes, is a hero. Lita in the comics is actually connected to an actual superhero. They didn't do it for this show because, once again, they couldn't use some of the licensing of the characters.
It could be Superman. So, Daredevil?
Sabeti got it right. Wonder Woman. Lita is actually the daughter of Steve Rogers, Wonder Woman's original love, and Wonder Woman. That's from the comics. That was the connection, Lita. And I figured that because of her accent that the actress had and the way she looked. I kept saying, when she had talked, I was like, were they going for a Gal Gadot kind of vibe here? Because I didn't know at first. And then I looked it up and I found out, I was like, I saw it. But there's actually, funny enough, there's a little, what do you call it? A little nugget of like reference to it, because in one of the things, when she's sitting in a room, the next scene shows a Wonder Woman action figure on a table. So that was the little Easter egg that was left in for fans of the comic books to remember that Lita, right? She reminded you of Linda Carter. That's what I said. I said the same thing. I was like, Gal Gadot, Linda Carter kind of vibe that they're giving her. And I was like, and I thought that when I first saw it, I was like, oh, she's very pretty. And she's like, she must going to be a main character. You know, you have this, you know, she just stood out and she was tall and she looked a certain way. And then I found out Lita is actually, in the comic book universe, the daughter of Wonder Woman. Yeah. Oh, when are we gonna get Wonder? What was Wonder Woman's sister name? Naomi? Is it Naomi? I forget. Yeah. So that's a little Easter egg. Did I blow your mind, Ma? That Lita.
I gotta look back on the episode.
Yes. Look for the Easter egg of the Wonder Woman action figure. It's an Easter egg.
So that's what y'all call Easter eggs, when you see something that's out of place?
When you see, not out of place, when you see something that's a reference to something, that's something that only people who would understand the reference would notice. That's an Easter egg, or kind of sense that that's a little message to whoever's watching, you know, things like that. So yes, that was an Easter egg, that Lita originally in the comic books is the daughter of Wonder Woman and Steve Rogers. Probably the best ship for Wonder Woman, if we're being honest. Yeah, blew your mind, right? Yes, that is from the comics. So she actually has, and that plot line, which they ended up doing, they pretty much kept the plot line the same from the comic books, and there's more to it, but it pretty much stayed the same, even though they minus the aspect of who she was related to. The plot line stayed the same with her and her love, Hector. So, but I thought that was really amazing that she's actually connected to Nubia. That was the name of Wonder Woman's sister. Thanks, Josh. So that was really interesting. Okay. What was there another Easter egg that I didn't know that I wanted to tell y'all about? It probably will come to me. Okay, Mom. Best episode of the season for you. And y'all let us know what you thought was the best episode of the season for you.
What was the best episode? I liked the episode when he was meeting the guy for 100 years. Every 100 years.
That was a very nice episode. That was sweet. Do you want to see that character again?
Yeah, I would like for him to go. I mean, you know, well, it's going to be every 100 years, but because he wanted to know. I like that the way he did it, especially when he told me that when you do see me again, you will call me a friend. And he said, "You think I need you?"
Mm-hmm.
I liked it that, but it was good. That was my best one. I like
I
that.
thought there was, funny enough, I
I
thought there was a
really
little
like
undertone of,
that one.
I thought there was a little undertone of romance there too, though, to be honest, like companionship. And I didn't mind it because they had great chemistry. I just thought that was interesting. I was like, I kind of sense that he just kind of offered himself, and Morpheus being so brooding was like, how dare you, human? How dare you admit I try to tell me about my love and life? Like, okay. Um,
But I like that one because it was like he told me, when you see me again, you will call me friend, and he did.
Yeah. I also I like that. That was definitely in the running for me as a fave episode because I felt like it really got you to see a little bit more of uh of the feelings. I guess that was also Death's episode. Death's episode was that episode. The first half
Yeah.
was Death, right? And then the second half was the whole thing with him and Hobbs, I think was his name. So that was really a powerful episode because we got Death in the first half and getting to know them, and then we got let me see. We're just looking at the thing, yeah. Hob, that was the name. And then we got the whole Hob thing. So it was a really succinct episode, which was interesting because it almost felt like two episodes in one because you had this first half with Death, and then the second half with the whole situation with Hob. But it was very much connected, right? Because Death was explaining to Morpheus why they do what they do. And it makes sense. I mean, even though they are mystical beings, and of course they've had eons to get tired of things and wonder why do they exist and why do they deal with humans or why do they do what they do, because they did actually hint that someone else of the Endless actually abandoned their post, and we don't know who that is yet. That was kind of hinted at in, like, I think the second episode, or yeah, like the first or second episode, where it was hinted that one of the Endless siblings had basically abandoned whatever realm they were ahead of. So it'll be interesting to see more of that. But I think it goes into this theme of Morpheus being like, what's the point? What does the world look like without dreams? And then you had him trying to figure that out through Hob of why would a human want to stay a human for hundreds and hundreds of years? Why wouldn't you beg for death to like move on? Now, mind you, one could argue you don't want to beg for death because many of us don't know what happens when death happens. So why would we be in a rush to go to the unknown? Even if this is a hellscape, even if there's so much going on, you still, I mean, it's more like the devil you know than the devil you don't, right? So it's like, well, it might be harsh and suffering here, but at least I know what's here. Why would I rush to get to something I don't know, right? Although with Hobbes, he kind of loved the life of being human. So that was also interesting. But I think we've all had that at some point, wondering what our purpose is and things like that. So in a way, it was funny that they made these larger than life beings somewhat relatable in that regard. You know, whether you've been at a job for a very long time, or if you lived in a town for a very long time, or something like that, and you just want to shake things up and you don't know why you're doing what you're doing anymore. I thought that was a relatable moment, and I'm glad we got to see that relatable moment with Morpheus. So that was definitely one of the strongest episodes as well. Now, my fave episode was 24/7. And that episode in the diner with John controlling or taking away people's ability to lie and just kind of give in to some of their craziest or most desires was a trip. It was a trip. What did you think of that episode, lady?
That was just, I was just shocked. I mean, I said, for real? I said, oh, whoa, I didn't see that coming.
Yeah. The diner episode was amazing to me. I just thought, I mean, I just love the setup of it. I'm a big fan of character study and character introspection and just basically putting characters in places together and just kind of having them explore themselves and the other characters through dialogue and what they do. And this was a perfect episode for that. Now, mind you, I say this is my fave episode or the best episode to me, just as an episode of all the episodes. It's probably not my fave of like what's connected to the actual plot, because this episode was a little bit off the beaten path because it was very much just about John, and then Morpheus doesn't come in until the end because he got knocked out by the ruby. But I just thought this episode really kind of put in perspective the question of, once again, what does it mean to be human? You know, what does it mean to exist? And I just felt like this was the episode that made me decide I really like this show. Like up to this point of 24/7, I knew I liked the show and I wanted to know more about the characters and the world. Like the first 4 episodes, I knew I liked it, but this episode and the writing and where they took it was like, oh, so this is what makes this show different. This is what is going to make this show stand out from other shows that might play with these themes, but really kind of take it there. Now, from what I hear, the comic book version of this was even more crazy, but I thought this episode was just enough where I wasn't just like, what the heck? Tom is in agreement. Yes, this episode had me hooked so much in this, right? It was so much going on in that diner. And it kind of reminded me, I don't know if anyone's watched the movie. I think it's based off a Stephen King book. It's one of my favorites. I haven't watched it in years. It's called Needful Things. Do you remember that, Ma? With the devil. He comes to town. He opens up a little knick-knack shop. And he sells people stuff. And they start acting really weird from the stuff that they get sold. And one of the ways they're acting is just basically kind of giving into their darkest wants and things. And the show is called Needful, and the movie was called Needful Things. And I thought it was one of the creepiest movies I ever saw. Mind you, no one ever turns into some big demon or anything like that, but it was so haunting how it was set up. The fact that the devil had come to town and was basically, it was all about these people and their choices that drove them to that craziness. And he just allowed them to get it. And I felt like with 24/7, that was very much in the realm of Needful Things. And I will also argue that this was probably the episode that was a little bit more horror tinged than all the other episodes. I felt like because I will say the Sandman, most people who I guess have read the comics see the Sandman as a horror comic book series. But I do feel like Netflix leaned a little bit more towards it being more of a dark fantasy show, which I was fine with. I'm not like, you know, even though I love horror, I wasn't like, oh my gosh, this is just, why'd you sanitize it? That's what I've seen some people with their criticism of it who have read the comics. They felt like the show sanitized some of the stuff. But I feel like I don't think you can really say that when it comes to the fact that they had this episode. There was nothing sanitized about this episode. So saying that it was that they sanitized the show or something or made it like PG-13 is like, no, they didn't. Maybe not all of it was as dark as it could have been, but they definitely didn't like sanitize the whole thing, you know. So Betty's saying, I remember Needful Things. Michelle is saying, Death's episode. That seems to be the consensus. A lot of y'all are saying that Death's episode / Hobbs episode was probably their favorite. And I definitely agree with that too. That episode was probably the one for me that, in terms of storytelling, also made me realize I really like this show. So I definitely agree with that in that regard. I think, when did Death's episode happen? What episode was that? I'm looking
that
it up.
was 6 or 7.
Was it 6? Because 24/7 was 5.
I think it was 6. No, I think it was before 24/7, wasn't it?
It was. It was right before. No. Wait a minute. I'm looking at it now. When was it? I'm trying to say. It was Constantine, Lucifer.
Oh, no,
Okay, 24/7.
24/7.
And then it was right after. It was right after. So I would argue, yeah, it was called, that one was called The Sound of Her Wings. That was that episode. And those two episodes together, 5 and 6, is what made me know that I really wanted to stick with this show. Now, mind you, I liked the first 4 episodes, but I was still like, is this really one of my fave new shows or what? But 5 and 6, I was like, yes. I was like, I want this. I want more of this show. 24/7, because of the darkness of it and where they were willing to go with themes and plot lines when it came to the human condition, as we saw, and the death episode because of the writing and the characters, and finally seeing Morpheus kind of flurry into more of a full-fledged character as opposed to him just brooding all the time, in my opinion. Michelle is saying, never read the comics, but that's why the convention episode fell flat for me. Oh, the cereal convention. The cereal. What'd you say, Mom? Say that again.
Yeah, I saw that when it said cereal. I said, oh, so they
I love cereal.
Yeah, I love cereal. They realized this ain't doing these killers.
Yeah. The actress that killed that role, but because she was deaf. She killed it. Yeah. Yeah, she was fantastic. And that's kind of the sense. And I want to know what y'all think in that regard. Do you think up to like episode 6, and then because after 6 things shift, right? That's when Rose's character comes in. It's a whole thing about the vortex and the cereal convention and stuff like that. There's a little bit of a tone shift. We kind of start focusing on Rose and what's going on with her. Dream doesn't really take a back seat, but it's not just about him anymore. Do you feel like the first half was stronger? I'm going to give you 3 options. Do you feel like the first half of the season from episodes 1 through 6 were stronger than the second half of the season? Do you feel like they both were equally strong for different reasons? Or do you actually think the second half of the season was actually stronger than the first half? And let us know what y'all think in the comments.
When you say season, I just saw episodes. How you see seasons?
You know what I mean? I meant like the first half of the season, like episodes 1 through 6.
Okay, now.
Like, do you think episodes 1 through 6 were better than episodes 7 through 10? We're not counting now, y'all. I'm not counting episode 11 because that was a bonus episode.
Yeah.
And it was kind of not within the realm of everything.
Okay. 1 and 2 was not my favorite. I would take it from. No, I would take it from 4 up to after 4. That's when it became better.
Okay, so after 4. So are you saying you felt like 4 through 10 was all good?
Yeah, I thought it was all good. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so you felt like 4 through 10 was where everything started to pick up.
Yeah,
all the way to the front.
That's when I started really watching after the 4th one. I saw the 4th one, then I go, okay. Then when I saw 5, I said, okay. And then I just kept, watching it.
Yeah.
Up to 10. But I think the best one, I think that got better with death.
I'm talking about the sections of it.
Okay, where was the devil in it? What episode?
The devil was early on.
He was in the 4th.
The devil was like episode 3.
It was episode 3 when they did the.
If I'm being honest, I was a little underwhelmed by him going to hell. Except for the Nada part, I thought the hell episode was all right. I thought their battle was pretty interesting.
I liked the battle.
The battle was good, but everything else just kind of felt. I'm like, this is hell. I was like, I don't know. I expected more. I don't know. Maybe because we've seen so many iterations of hell and so many other shoes. So it's like, yeah.
But their hell was kind of realistic. You look at it, go, damn. All those people down at the bottom. But I think it was the second. So would you say number 4 to 4 to 10 was the second half of it?
Well, some people are basically saying that sorry, just taking care of some stuff in the chat for a second.
Look like we found what?
Yeah, nothing. You don't even have to acknowledge it. What I'm saying is a lot of the consensus is that some people felt like the first half of the season was a stronger part, basically up to episode 6. And then when it switched, when Rose enters the picture onward is when it gets when it starts to get kind of, you know, weird, and that it's not as interesting. Or that the tone was just, it just felt like you know, it wasn't, you know what I mean? Your wish is my command, Josh. You are now one of the moderators. You can take care of that if it pops up again. And Michael, I think Michael's also in the chat.
It's 3 of them.
It's okay. It's just some spam in the chat, y'all, that I had to take care of. Okay, so all right, so my opinion, and this might be a little bit of a different opinion, I was very surprised when people I was actually surprised when I looked at some of the forums and some people said the second half was weaker. I don't think the second half, basically Rose's plot line, I don't think that was weaker. I feel like it was different. It was different. You know, we had basically started the show from 1 through 6 with Dream and his siblings being kind of the center. We even saw Desire pop up in there. And then suddenly we didn't get Desire as much, except, well, in the second half of the season, Desire was actually very much a part of that plot line, even though it wasn't revealed until the very end of what they were trying to get Morpheus to end up mistakenly doing, right? But I will say that I didn't dislike it. I liked the serial killer convention. I thought that was very interesting, and I love that we got to see a little bit more of Corinthian in a different light. That he wasn't just like, I just want to kill everything. It was more like, this is human nature, and this is what I'm about, you know. And so I felt like that was different. You know, like in the first 1 through 6, you had very much the mystical, the big picture. He's going down to hell, Lucifer. And then you had the situation with Rose. And then it has a callback to the sleeping sickness and how Rose ended up becoming the vortex because of the sleeping sickness, and how Desire played a role in that. Yes, it was a detour. That's what I feel like people might have been annoyed about, that it felt like a detour. We had just got settled into Death, Morpheus, Hob, and all that great stuff that was going on. And then suddenly we're focusing on Rose and the vortex. Tell me if I'm right or wrong in that, y'all, that I felt like it was more that people were thrown off because it felt like a detour from everything that we had been dealing with for the first 6 episodes. What do you think about that, Ma? Did you feel like it was, I mean, even if you liked it, did you feel like it was a little bit of a detour? It was like, okay, now suddenly we're following Rose around instead of Dream and what he's dealing with?
Yeah, it was sound like a detour because it was focusing more on Rose and Dream, you know. The punky hair, I like the punky hair coming in there.
Oh yeah, that was cute. I just love the fairy tale elements, the dark fairy tale elements of this show that's just so randomly thrown in there sometimes, and just remind you this is some fantasy stuff. I love it. And he's like the handyman around there. I love that.
And oh, wait a minute, Matthew the Crow.
Now,
he's a raven. No, he's a raven.
Now that was Patton Oswalt who played that character, and he tends to play characters. He tends to voice characters like that. Like, for those who watch The Boys, he's the Fins for the Aquaman type character. He plays his Fins, and he also was in the show Happy, and he played the voice of the little thing that had wings, right? So he's no stranger to playing like inanimate objects and things like that and being the voice of it. I will say that it did take me out a little bit hearing his voice. It did, because you had all these British characters and very sophisticated words, and then you got Patton Oswalt like dreams don't die. And I don't know if he was like put into it to kind of be our American version of something, like in something that's so not necessarily American. So I didn't mind it, but I will admit, because I knew it was Patton Oswalt, it was, and how he does it, it wasn't that it was bad, it was just a little distracting for me. No shade to him. I've met him. He's a very nice guy. He actually signed Michael's comedy album that Michael has of his. He's a very nice guy. But I think it's because I know his voice so well that it threw me off him being there. I was like,
he played
Patton Oswalt again? Get that Netflix check.
He played Matthew?
He played the Raven. He was the Raven's voice. Now, I want to hear the backstory. It'd be great to see what Matthew's life was before he died and stuff. But it kind of threw me off that he was the Raven. Because I don't know, when you see a Raven, you always expect, I don't know why, I just expected to be a British voice.
What's his last name?
Patton Oswalt. Are you looking him up?
You said Oswalt?
Oswalt. Osswalt. And we love Patton Oswalt. He's a very funny guy. It threw me off a little bit that he was playing the voice. Michelle is pointing out maybe it was an issue of or episode order.
No, that's him.
Yeah, that's him. Maybe they could have mixed Rose's story in with Dream. That's what I think too, Michelle. I think that probably also threw people off, because suddenly we had Dream stuff from like episode 1 through 6, and then suddenly his stuff kind of takes it back. Now, I would argue that his story was very much connected to Rose's story, and we did see character growth for Morpheus through Rose's story, but it was such a shift of focus where he was hardly in the episode. Now, mind you, he was hardly in the episode 24/7, but there was a reason for that, because he was literally knocked out the whole time. But I agree that it was kind of like, I felt like they could have maybe mixed it a little bit better. Sabetti is saying, at first his voice took me out of the world, but I got used to it because he was, exactly. I got used to it too, because it worked, and I rooted for Matthew's character, because I was so mad when his other Raven had gotten killed in the first episode. I was so mad at that. I was like, because y'all know I love animals. My kitties are somewhere in the house, but I was so mad at that, and I was like, oh, I hope she went to heaven or something, you know. But I also understood why Morpheus didn't want another Raven, because his Raven had gotten killed right in front of him. So that was another little nugget of Morpheus's feelings that aren't always, that I appreciated them having there. Yes, Jeffrey Dean Morgan has been casted in The Boys season 4, which is interesting. I still got to catch up to season 4. I'm still on season 2 right now of The Boys, but I'm loving it. So yeah, I understand the tone shift, and I think that threw a lot of people off, especially when you've gotten used to really loving this character. I wanted to see more of Death character. I wanted to see more of Desire, and it was just suddenly I'm following Rose around, and I didn't mind it because I liked Rose. I thought Rose was a great character, and everything. She was cool. She wasn't my fave, but she was solid. She wasn't some annoying young chick who was just like, I'm the now powerful one, leave me alone, everyone. And she also wasn't a Mary Sue, which I also appreciate, because sometimes you get these Mary Sue kind of fan service inserts, and I appreciated that she wasn't that either. So but I wanted to see more of this. I wanted to see more of Desire, but I think they allowed us to get a little glimpse of who they were. And the same thing with Lucifer, because it would look like this is not the last we're seeing of Lucifer either. Now, one of the things that threw me off, I don't know about you, but there's clearly some battles between the siblings. What did you think about that? And do you think we're going to get more of that in season 2?
I think so, because I don't know. It must be like Desire want to take over his realm or something, and Hell too. Like they just want to try to take over the dream world, I think.
And this is what throws me off. Let us know, chat. Like, out of all the realms, what realm would you think would be the most powerful? because I feel like I'm a little confused, and maybe the comic book makes this more clear, but I'm confused as to why everybody wants Dream's realm. Like, is it because this idea that dreams are like something so powerful to humans, so they feel like it's the way? Because it seems like, from my understanding, the way that Desire was talking to their sister Despair. Sorry, I don't mean to keep misgendering them. Talking to their sister Despair, which was also an interesting choice. You know what I actually want to look up? I want to look up what Despair looks like in the comic books. Does anybody know what Despair looks like in the comic books? Despair. I'm going to look that up because that was an interesting choice of the way they made them look, which was a little weird to me. But I guess it was supposed to be complete opposite of Desire, right?
Yeah.
One could argue maybe that was also I wonder if that was also kind of a gender. No, it wasn't a gender swap. Okay, she was naked in the comics. I can see why they changed it up. Looks like they were naked in the comics. So I'm going to show y'all a picture in a second. I'm just trying to make sure it's the right one. But what did you think about that? Because let me know, y'all. Do y'all think that Dream would be like the Dream realm would be the most powerful realm? I would think Death's realm would be the most powerful. Maybe Desire, maybe. But it threw me off that everybody wanted to get in Dream's realm, and it's like
to stay away. You know, they was happy he was locked up. I mean, I guess in a way, dreams you can get through the mind of all the humans.
Yeah.
Could you imagine you dreaming every night of something that, if hell was there, you dreaming of hell every night? Or if desire was there, you was desiring something?
Yeah.
Despair, I mean, really, you know, in your dreams.
Now,
and he said nightmare he just wanted everybody just to be in a nightmare.
Yeah. Now, it sounded like Desire and Despair were mad at Dream because they felt like there seems to be, and this would make sense because Dream is a interesting kind of character in that way. He's not special. I mean, he's not perfect. Is that Dream had a tendency, I guess, to make them think that Dream had a tendency to make it seemed like his realm was the best realm or the most powerful. And it sounded like Desire and Despair had an issue with that, because one of the things that Desire tells their sister Despair is, sister, will show Morpheus that the dream realm is not the most powerful realm. And so I thought that was interesting. I just honestly, if you had to be in charge of any realm, Mom, which would it be? Let us know in the chat, y'all. If you had to be in charge of any realm, what would it be?
Dreams.
Dreams? Okay. Well, I guess that makes sense. Josh is saying Death realm is more powerful. Sabeti is saying some dreams are full of hope and can be very, very, it's very true. That's very true. That's a very good point. I feel like that is a good point. Y'all, I'm just looking I think I found a picture of what Despair is supposed to look like. Yeah, I think I found a photo, which is, I think it's better what they ended up doing on the show. Let me see. Although I kind of get it. Let me see. Yeah, I think if I wanted to be in charge of any realm, I guess I would pick the dream realm. I guess I would. I guess it would be dream realm too. I admit that.
I wouldn't pick hell. Excuse me.
You wouldn't pick hell?
No, I wouldn't.
Oh. Yeah, why would you want to be in charge of someone like Sabeti's in agreement? Any realm but hell. Yeah, because it would just be jerks down there, right? Like
all the assholes that really, yeah, you really deserve to be down
like
here.
That's who you have to deal with all the time. At least, and you're right. And when it comes to dreams, that is very much so powerful for everybody. Mostly everyone sleeps, everyone has dreams. So that makes sense. I'm gonna bring over. Okay, so this is one of the photos from the comic books of Despair. What do you think, Ma?
She looked similar to that.
Similar, but not really. She was blonde in this one, and she just kind of just looks sad. Like this Despair actually looks like a little bit of a monster.
Mm-hmm.
But I kind of get why I don't know. I feel this might have been interesting had they gone with this route of this character design. What do y'all think? I feel like this character design is actually pretty cool.
But they would have make her like, was those stitches?
Yeah, it looked like stitches. Gonna show another photo of that. It's another one.
Ooh.
So it looks like Despair is usually naked.
Oh. Okay. Well, no, sister, I ain't pick on you, but
right. And I think Promethean actually makes a really good point. And this is why I initially had an issue with it before I even knew this is what Despair looked like. But Promethean said, I just thought it was disappointing. The only visibly plus size character was Despair. And I was annoyed not annoyed, but I felt some type of way that they had Desire, although Desire is gorgeous. They are gorgeous. I was like, okay, Desire is gorgeous. But, they're thin, and on top of that, they're gorgeous because let's be real, thin does not equal gorgeous. Just like, what I mean? Like, it does not. Just like, of course, being plus size can also be gorgeous and things like that. But the way they had them so kind of opposite, it was kind of like Desire's like this thin thing with like makeup and everything, and then Despair is like this plus size woman with a sweater on with no makeup and looking like she just got caught in the rain. And I was like, why that juxtaposition? You know what I mean? Like, it was a weird kind of you know what I mean? What did you think about them? I felt a little bit like they dropped the ball. Like, if there was anything that they could have maybe changed a little bit, they changed a good amount of stuff, and we've talked about that in this one, that they changed a good amount of stuff. But I felt like if there was anything they could have tweaked better, that probably was it.
I didn't really notice, I know she was big, but it was mostly like, it was just the way things, like, she was just sad about everything. She just said, we need to do that. I mean, I just looked at it. I didn't see, I didn't really see her big. Maybe because but I guess that's how Despair is like that. I don't catch that.
Well, that's what they look like in the comics. They are, bigger size. Now, they're not the only bigger size endless. I do think there's another endless that's canon-wise is bigger size. But the ones we've seen so far, they are the only plus size endless that we got, and they're Despair. And I do think they could have switched it up a little bit, right? Like, I mean, I think if I was starving and emaciated, I'd be Despair. So why not make it so they're damn near skeletal and they're sad? Like, I mean, listen, when I get some good food, I'm very happy. So, like, you know what I mean?
If you eat and you're happy, I mean,
right?
You got Despair. Food is it. It makes us
right.
No,
so
but
it was I was like, food is like wonderful. I'm a foodie, y'all. I love me some.
That's my joy.
You know what I mean? So, and not in like a dependent kind of way, but just simply food is wonderful. And so it's weird that, in all these things they've updated it, that they couldn't update that one. I felt like that was maybe the one they missed, that they could have had a chance to update that to be better suited against the, at times fat phobia that we have in our society, and things. But I get it too. You already have people being mean and stuff, and maybe we're judging it too quickly. Despair can end up being a badass in this show. I mean, they look sad now, but maybe they're also a badass.
Well, I think I saw a smile when Desire said something. I think there's a smile there.
Yeah. So I mean, I agree, Ma. So I mean, honestly, looking at this picture, it looks like Despair might be a badass. It looks like Despair could potentially be a badass. I'm just kind of, I'm gonna.
Is Despair?
What was that, Mom?
That's her realm. Despair.
Yeah.
Goodness.
I think Desire and Despair maybe share the same realm, perhaps, because they're two sides of the same. They're two sides of the same coin. But I don't know. It looks like Despair might be kind of badass with power. I mean, think about it. You can make someone really sad all the time and stuff. I mean, that's pretty powerful too. Sadness is powerful. So I think I'm gonna go in wait and see mode. I'm not gonna go into immediately thinking that they're playing into that really overdone trope that if a character's plus size, they must be miserable in Hollywood or something or be lacking. So I guess we'll see where that goes. I'll go in wait and see mode about that. Exactly. That's what I was thinking too, Perminity. I don't know much about Despair, but they could. That's what I mean. So I'm going to be in wait and see mode. I just was not very impressed with the first look and the first and only look we got of Despair this season. So we're definitely in wait and see mode. That could definitely develop into something way cooler going on, because by looking at the comics, looks like Despair might be pretty badass actually. So let's see where it goes with that. Maybe she'll lose that sweater. I don't know what that was. I'd rather her just be naked. Make her naked. I love that. Not fully naked, you know what I mean? Like, you know, like just not all clothes. That would have been awesome. That would have been cool. My mom's like, I don't know about that. I don't want to see a naked body all the time. All right, so we've been going for an hour and a half so far. Okay, so this was part one of our discussion, y'all. Next week, I want to do part two, going into very specific plot details, like Morpheus being captured for 100 years, the whole vortex thing. We only graced the thing of the vortex. We actually ended up talking a little bit more about the first half of the season and the second half. And the second half has its own kind of discussion, the whole thing about the vortex, about Lita, about Hector, about that household of weirdos that we fell in love with. I know I fell in love with those characters. So we got to talk about them. But this was the first half of the discussion, and we'll get more into those details next week. So if you haven't decided who is your fave character yet or anything like that, come with it next week, because we're going to dive deeper into some of the plot points. But overall, what we discussed today was, you know, overall the grade. I think all of us are in agreement that it was a B+ season, but that many of us want a season 2. And also next week, we'll talk about what we want to see in season 2 as well. So think about that, what you want to see more of in the next season and what you could do with less of in the next season as well. So we'll touch on that as well, because like I said, this is part one of the whole season discussion, which is why this was an hour and a half. And then we'll have part 2 next week, God willing, of course. But yeah, anything else, lady, before we take it down for the night?
No.
Oh
yeah, there was one.
What?
What was the episode? What was that?
Are you thinking about what episode you loved the another second runner up for best episode?
Yeah. What was that one? Okay, 4. Oh
yeah.
Like I said, the one when him and her, when the devil and him was like arguing, doing their little argument, how they was winning.
Oh yeah, that was good. That was good.
Good one, especially after when she thought she had him and he said, "Hope."
Oh, and that actually brings me to, thank you for bringing that up. That actually brings me to another Easter egg, the question of antimatter or anti-life. That was the thing that Lucifer brought up to Morpheus right before Morpheus said hope, right? So anti-life is a big theme in DC Comics as well. If some people who pay attention to DC Comics, the whole question of anti-life is actually a big theme in DC Comics. So it actually is very much connected, which was another little Easter egg. It might have seemed like just kind of out there for the show, and a lot of people probably rolled with it, but it actually was a little bit of an Easter egg in the sense that is a big thing in the DC Comics world of the anti-life type thing in DC Comics. So that was a little, for those who pay attention to the DC Comics, right? Do you think you would have won that, Ma? How many of y'all think y'all would have won against Lucifer? If Lucifer had said anti-life, what would you have said? I don't know. I don't know how far I would have gotten. Would y'all have? Do y'all think y'all would have won that battle? I don't know if I would have won that battle.
Well, wait a minute. I think now if she had said that, the only thing that would have probably popped up in here would have been love.
You would have said love, which is very similar to hope. Yeah.
You know, I would have just said
optimism.
Love, something. Something that's going to make you realize, no, this is important.
I was about to be really, I was going to be really cheesy and be like, God, Jesus Christ, God, you can't beat God. Like I was like, say God, but I was like, they can't say God. This isn't that kind of show, but that's what I was going to say. I probably would have lost. I don't even know if I would have got to that part.
That's what I'm saying. He was saying, so I said, I wouldn't have said that.
Right? I don't know. I don't think I would have won. I don't think I would have won.
But some things I said, okay, she kind of topped you on one of them now. Wait a minute, hold on.
Yeah, I was like, I don't know what I would say in relation to
then when he said that part, when I would have said love, but then when he said hope, and then I said, yeah, you got it on that.
Yeah, because hope, you're always going to have hope somewhere. I don't know if you're going to have the hope if you have anti-life, but you could have hope. I can definitely see. And what tops hope, right? What tops hope?
What? I mean, really?
Despair? No, because even in the face of despair, there's hope.
It's hope. And that's what that's when and she did not like to lose. She was still mad.
Yeah. Josh is very certain they would have won. So, okay. If the devil ever comes to you, Josh, and they're like, for your soul.
Then Josh, you got to say yes.
I don't know that. Don't reach out to us because we can't help you. just do it. Yes. Okay, y'all. Also, I think what most likely I am going to be on Twitch. Most likely either tomorrow or Saturday. I'm thinking Saturday maybe. I don't know what time Saturday if I did it, but I'm aiming for either tomorrow or Saturday for Twitch. For those who are on Twitch or want to hang out with me on Twitch, I'll probably be playing Sims though. But I tend to play Sims with werewolves and vampires and aliens. Werewolf, vampires, aliens, and witches. So I play occult Sims. So if you're into that kind of stuff, come hang out with me. I believe the connect to my Twitch is on this page, so you can find that there. And I'm not sure. Just check for the schedule because I'm going to aim for either tomorrow or Saturday to be on there. But I'll let you know what time if you want to come hang out with me on Twitch to play some werewolves and witch stuff with the Sims. Okay, y'all? But thank you again for joining us. This was a fun time. Josh asked if I'm going to review Resident Evil. I don't know, because I'm hearing Resident Evil may not be getting a season 2. So the Resident Evil on Netflix, y'all, I'm hearing it might not get a season 2. So I would hate to start a show and it not get a season 2. So I don't want to do that to myself. But yeah, I'm gonna aim for that for either Friday or Saturday on Twitch though. And next week, join us next week for the Sandman. Okay, y'all. All right. Talk to you later. Stay safe out there, guys.